As we mentioned last night, elections set the table for some key races to watch this November, including in Florida, where Congressman Byron Donalds will go up against former Congressman David Jolly in the state's gubernatorial race. The two already taking aim at each other in their victory speeches last night. Listen.
David Jolly is a career political insider, a Washington lobbyist casting checks for special interests, and an MSNBC commentator who was part of the very revolving door he claims he'd clean up. David Jolly represents everything that folks hate about Washington, D.C. Liberal David Jolly is the change that Florida cannot afford.
You see, Byron Donalds has sold the governor's mansion to the highest bidder. And the special interests across the state have been happy to play ball, folks. Let me tell you something. Byron Donalds might be for sale, but Gwen Graham and David Jolly never are.
And joining me now is the Democratic nominee for governor in Florida, former Congressman David Jolly. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Kristen.
Well, congratulations on your primary win. Let's talk about the stakes. Florida, as you know, has not had a Democratic governor since 1999. Democrats lost the last gubernatorial race by nearly 20 points. Why do you think you can flip this seat, and what do you have to do to accomplish that?
Because 2026 isn't 2022. In 2022, voters wanted to continue on the current direction. But in 26, voters are screaming for change. Look, people are worried about the economy that's gripping them so hard that they're not sure about whether they can stay in their house, afford their rent, get health care, or where to educate their kids. And you see in 26 voters asking for change. It's a very different environment, to be honest, that has presented the opportunity for a candidate like myself to run on the basics: housing, health care, and education. The economy should work. The free market capitalism is a good thing, but government's got to step in and help out in some critical areas that should stay out of your life, stay out of your bedroom. Old school Republican libertarianism. Look, voters are telling us they want change. And so in Florida, Kristen, this is a unique year. Our congressionals have swung by 15 points. The city of Miami elected a Democratic mayor for the first time in 30 years. It was 19 points. Mar-a-Lago elected a Democratic state representative. Sarasota's red wall fell last night. Voters want change. Byron Donalds is promising more of the same, and we're the candidate of change.
Well, you know, you talk about the broader environment. If you look at the numbers, more Republicans turned out for the Republican primary than Democrats turned out for the Democratic primary. You see the numbers right here. It's a big gap, Congressman. How do you close that enthusiasm gap between now and November? And presumably you've got to win over some independents as well.
Yeah, you had a much more competitive environment on the Republican side last night. Byron Donalds had spent $55 million. He was endorsed by the president, and still more Republicans voted against him than voted for him. You had three other candidates with significant followings. We had been able to unify our Democratic primary, so I think that impacted turnout. But here's the most important thing. Translate that to the general election. That's fine. In all of the elections I just mentioned, the night that Mar-a-Lago, Republican Mar-a-Lago elected a Democratic state representative. And in Hillsborough County that same night, a Republican community elected a Democratic state representative. Kristen, more Republicans voted than Democrats in those races. And so I think we're in an environment where people understand you don't have to be a Democrat to vote for a Democrat. That's not every environment we have. I'm leading with democratic values. The economy should work. Government can do its part. Everyone's rights should be protected. But in a moment where people are looking for change, independents and Republicans are saying, look, if you'll focus on the basics, housing, health care, education, return to local control, keep government lean and efficient and out of my life, that's what I'm talking about. Byron Donalds is doing this crazy talk about radicalism and launching the culture wars and spending money to try to divide us. We're also a nation that's broken, and we're looking for something better in our politics. It's not Byron.
Well, let me ask you about Byron Donalds. You heard what he said about you in the introduction. He's also called you a Trojan horse for the far left. Are you? How do you respond to that?
Byron Donalds calls me radical. I'm not even cool, Kristen. I'm a former Republican. I was an independent. I reject socialism. I reject the DSA. I'm a capitalist that believes capitalism creates the greatest amount of economic opportunity. I also know since World War II, both Republicans and Democrats have realized there are some things the private sector won't solve for us. Homeowners insurance reform in a natural disaster state. I think we need a state catastrophic fund. The delivery of primary health care to families that can't afford it. A celebration of public education, investments in clean air and clean water. Look, I'm a Bush 41 Republican who left the party, became an independent. Today, I'm a proud Florida Democrat, not a reluctant one. But Byron Donalds is using all of this scare tactics because they don't have an answer in Trump's economy to improve people's personal lives. So he launches the culture wars. He uses the scare tactics. Interestingly, Kristen, last night in his acceptance speech, he mentioned me 5 or 6 times, Mandami a couple times. Not once did he mention President Trump. He is Donald Trump's guy. It's his president. I've encouraged Byron. Campaign with Donald Trump in Florida. Defend the current economy in the state of Florida. He's already a Republican running away from his Republican president right now.
Let me follow up with you on that point. You just said you reject the DSA. Angie Nixon is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Is the Democratic tent big enough for both you and Angie Nixon? Do you welcome Democratic Socialists?
I do not support Democratic Socialists. I reject Democratic Socialists. I reject socialism. I'm a capitalist. Here's what I can tell you about Angie Nixon.
Is there room in the Democratic Party for both of you? Is there room in the Democratic Party for both of you?
I don't think Democratic Socialists represent democratic values, but I'm not running to referee the Democratic Party conversation. I'm running to be governor of the state of Florida. But I want to give credit to Angie Nixon on something. I've run a Lawton Childs campaign. I've been all around the state of Florida, 300 town halls, red, blue, purple. You know who else has been in there? Angie. She hasn't been running a DSA campaign. She's been running a campaign that is in the community saying, I want to help improve your life, improve your economic opportunities with housing, healthcare, and education. She's a warrior who's been leaving it all on the field. And so last night, voters said, we want that warrior. Look, Angie and I have been in touch today. I've been out of politics long enough to tell the truth, Kristen, and I'm going to be honest with you. Angie Nixon and I are going to disagree on a whole lot in this race. We are. But I know she's a warrior fighting to improve people's lives when it comes to housing, healthcare, and education, just as I am. Give us a few days to meet, to have conversations. They're very different races, right? She's running for Senate. I'm running for governor. Very different jurisdictions. But I do think on the basics, we can be united. Improving people's lives by improving their economy. I'm certainly willing to draw that contrast to Byron Donalds or Ashley Moody this cycle.
Do you plan to campaign with Angie Nixon?
Let's see how the next several months unfold. I will tell you this. I really mean
so
this.
That's
I'm
not
committed
a yes.
to unity.
That's not a yes, Congressman?
Listen, we have already campaigned together. No,
but now that we're in the general, hold on. Now that we're in the general election, do you plan to campaign with Angie Nixon?
I imagine she and I will certainly be at campaign events together. I'm the Democratic nominee for governor. She's the Democratic nominee for Senate. But I want to be very clear about this. There are areas where we're going to agree. There are areas where we are really going to disagree. Most of those areas might be on foreign policy, where her views on Israel are very different than mine. And that's a different constituency that we each will attract or not. That's fine. The important thing is that we're honest with voters. Because you know what? Byron Donalds isn't honest with voters. The leading, most successful socialist in the country right now is Donald Trump, who has taken the federal government into financial positions with Intel, Nvidia, Nippon, and all these other companies. I'm at least willing to call out socialism on the left and the right. Byron Donalds doesn't have courage to do that. He's talking about socialism in the Democratic Party, and he's ignoring it in the Republican Party. This is also a test of honesty in our politics. I'm willing to lay it all on the field and be honest. When I disagree with Angie, I'll speak of it. When I disagree with Byron or Donald Trump, I'm going to speak of it. It is Byron Donalds who is too cowardly to actually recognize that Trump's economy is crippling Florida, that he's promoting socialism as president of the United States, that culture wars are dividing us and breaking us as a people. I'm willing to take this fight. I'll do it alongside Angie Nixon. I'm going to take it right to Byron Donalds.
So, and I hear you saying you agree on some things, you disagree on other things. Will you support her? Will you, in fact, vote for her on Election Day?
I imagine Angie and I will be supporting each other on Election Day. This all happened in the last 24 hours. Angie, I'm keeping it real Kristen, I'm keeping it real honest here. Angie and I have been in touch today. Give us a few days to meet to see exactly where we are on some issues. I need some explanations from her. I'm sure she needs some explanations from me. I'm a former Republican who's been a Democrat for about 14 months. I think it's okay to be honest that sometimes there are these family conversations to be had. What I will tell you is the Democratic Party is united on three basic values. The economy should work for everyone. Government can do a little bit to improve our lives, and everyone's rights should be protected. Those are not the values of Byron Donalds and Donald Trump and Ashley Moody. They're fighting for the economy to work for some, but not everybody else. They're trying to crush government's investments in housing, healthcare, and education, and they've launched culture wars to divide us. Look, we can be honest that sometimes politics is messy. That's okay. I think voters want honesty. Where Angie and I disagree, we'll disagree, but I'll tell you who I disagree more with, Byron Donalds. I think he's wrong for Florida every single day of the year.
All right. Former Congressman David Jolly, thank you so very much for joining us. Hope you'll come back and join us between now and Election Day. Really appreciate it. Thank you.